Now let's talk about the cost to the organization, because this is where leadership usually gets blindsided. When every meaningful decision escalates, teams stop developing their own judgment. It isn't immediate, it isn't even conscious. They stop because there's no incentive to think deeply when escalation, given it to you, is cheaper for them. Why wrestle with a hard trade off when the CTO will decide for you? Why take responsibility when approval is expected? Why risk being wrong when safety lives upstairs? So initiative, it dies quietly. Strong people disengage first. They either leave or they emotionally check out. Weak systems, they persist because you keep compensating for them. And from the outside, leadership thinks things are fine. Deadlines mostly hit. Customers, they aren't screaming. Revenue, it keeps growing. So nobody asks, hey, why does the CTO look so exhausted? Nobody asks, hey, how come the tech team has such high turnover? Nobody asks, hey, how come it feels like every time we do a release, we fix 4 things and we break 5? Firefighting hides dysfunction, and that is part of what makes it so dangerous. Now, here's where nearly every firefighter CTO makes the exact same mistake. They try to fix these problems with more process. What does that mean? More reviews, more approvals, more documentation, more governance. And on paper, that looks like something a mature person would do. But in reality, it often makes the entire problem exponentially worse, because process without decision clarity doesn't decentralize authority, it formalizes escalation. I want you to remember that. If people don't know who owns a decision, process slows it down. And if people don't know what trade-offs are acceptable, process paralyzes them. If people don't know what good looks like, process becomes theater. So let me say this plainly. Process, it is not leadership. Process amplifies leadership. If leadership is unclear, process amplifies confusion. If leadership is centralized, process amplifies bottlenecks. And if leadership avoids hard trade-offs, process amplifies paralysis. And this is why so many CTOs feel like they're drowning in meetings while still being blamed for every delay. They've become the approval layer for a system that never learned how to decide on its own. And that brings us to the real root of the firefighter CTO problem. Can you guess what it is? It's not workload. Nope. It's not staffing. Nope. It's not tools. It's not even culture. What is it then? It's decision architecture. Most organizations have never explicitly designed how decisions are made. They rely on habit. They rely on escalation. They rely, believe it or not, on personalities. And when that happens, it's a sad point, but the most experienced person, they become the decision engine. That's you. Now, think about how many decisions hit your desk that aren't actually technical. How about security versus speed? Maybe there's a decision to build versus buy. How about refactor something versus ship it as it is? Scalability versus cost. Now, these are all leadership trade-offs. They only feel technical because, you guessed it, leadership never owned them. So you inherited them. Now, why? Why does that happen? I'm going to tell you about a time that I had something escalated to me on a Saturday that was absolutely ridiculous. They contacted my CEO, was having a meeting with our sales director, and they were talking about security of the data in our system because she was quite concerned that salespeople could send that data elsewhere. And so, not knowing what was going on, she thought she had a great solution. So she contacted, the CEO contacted our network administrator and said, hey, this is a situation, blah, 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 blah. He tells him, you know what? I can't make that decision. Send it to Mike. So then I get this call from this on a Saturday. Never happens. And what does he tell me? The sales manager is here and we want you to start using email templates that don't allow attachments. So I said to him, what problem are you trying to solve? And he tells me. I said, that's not going to solve that problem. I will show you why. And so that next time I saw him on Monday, I showed him that I could copy and paste any attachment into the email and send it. So just because you block attachments doesn't mean that you're stopping the problem. Now let's talk about escape, because this is where most advice becomes, let's be real, useless. Delegate more. Have you heard this one? Trust your team. How about the simple one? Let's go. That advice fails because it ignores fear. The fear of being blamed. The fear of failure. The fear that if something breaks, it breaks on you. So what's the path, guys? Here's the real path out. You got to stop being the answer. Not overnight. It's not going to happen. But it has to happen at some point. Not recklessly either. You got to take care in what you're doing. You stop being the fastest path to certainty. Instead of answers, give them standards. Instead of decisions, give them frameworks. Instead of approvals, set boundaries. When someone asks, what should we do? You ask, what decision are you making? And what principle applies to that decision? Now, at first, this is going to feel really slow. Let's be real. People are not used to this, so they're going to resist. They're going to get uncomfortable. They might even complain. But what's actually happening is that the system is being forced to think. That kind of friction, it's very necessary because you cannot fix what you keep absorbing. So the next step is explicit decision design. Now, this isn't about policies. It's not about procedures. Design. Let that sink in. Who decides what? What inputs matter in order to solve the problem? What trade-offs are acceptable versus what are not?